Hello everyone, and you are warmly welcome to a second series of the Road to Cheltenham. We're really pleased to have you here, and I realise that this jump season looks set to be rather different to the one that we'd ideally want. Hopefully you'll be allowed back onto the racecourse soon, but while we wait for that, we're hoping that this series will be your link to the live action on course. But we've all had to make some compromises, and one of the compromises we've had to make here at Racing TV is the fact that I'm alone in this studio rather than having Ruby Walsh on my right, and instead we have to use the power of technology to reach across the Irish Sea and join him in his home in County Kildare. So Ruby, how are you?
I'm great, Lydia. This lockdown is making my life a hell of a lot easier. I didn't have to get up this morning and traipse through Dublin Airport and through Heathrow to sit beside you. I can do it all from the comfort of home. It's wonderful.
I won't ask you which bit of that long list is the most trying. I'm hoping it's not the end.
We'll go with the travel. We'll go with the travel, Lydia.
Probably best. It's quite a long series ahead, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't fall out the first day anyway.
No, absolutely not. I'm looking forward to what you've got for me during the course of this half hour.
I was full sure, seeing as you were the one in the studio and Ealing, you were going to create this show and I just have to answer your questions.
No, I'm wholly relying on you. We should have talked prior to this, I think. Anyway, should we give it a go?
I know, yeah. We'll have a try.
OK, a couple of bits of housekeeping first before we get on with it. Item number one, there is, of course, a column that I write that accompanies this series, and you can always find it on the Racing TV website. So if you go to racingtv.com/Road to Cheltenham, you will always find the latest edition of that column there. And secondly, if you are new to this series, or maybe you might just need reminding, the words road and to are just as important as Cheltenham in this series. We are not sacrificing the entire jump season on 4 days in March. We are interested in each and every race and racecourse that helps to make this season so great, in between and even beyond it. Right? I'll be clear? Jolly good. Let's get on with it, shall we? Right, the first horse that we're going to focus on is Abacadabras, first of all, Ruby. And let's start by reflecting on what he achieved in the Supreme last year. And this is what he and Davy Russell went through. This is take one, the full start for the Supreme. Yeah,
but Lydia, look, he's lining him up to take his time anyway, because he's in the middle of your shot towards the back. Well, he's not. He's gone through the halfway there now, but that's it with the false start. When they come back and it's a standing start, he doesn't get the ideal position. But that happens with standing starts. He didn't go that far to pull him up. He turns him around, heads back. So he ends up towards the back of the field. Actually, when he gets to standing start, you'll see in 1 minute, when they go through the tape and he does jump off, he is stone last.
But he just stands still a bit, doesn't he, at the start?
Yeah, he does, but that can happen. But now Davy Russell has to go to plan B, and it's Davy Russell's quickness of mind and adaptation to go to plan B that actually makes the start irrelevant as the race goes on. You see where he is right now. He's not that far behind your eventual winner. Right down the inside in the yellow cap with the black star is Shishkin. The horse in the white cap in the middle is Century House. He's third. The front runner, Asterion Forlonge, the grey, he finishes fourth. Top of the hill, David Russell has gotten by Shishkin, who actually lost his place on the top of the hill. So whereas Abacadabras may have lost his position at the start, he had 2 miles to make it up. Shishkin lost his at the top of the hill with only 5 furlongs to make it up. They come down here, Asterion Forlonge goes mad to his right, bumps off Elixir Dane, but he doesn't cause Abacadabras any inconvenience there. He lands galloping. All right, at the second last hurdle, it's a bit more dramatic, but your winner is directly behind him. I think David Russell gave Abacadabras a brilliant ride. He coasted through the race, made up all the ground he wanted to make up. To me there, Lydia, the runner-up suffers more interference, or the winner suffers more interference than the runner-up. Here you see Abacadabras is travelling much the best. Now people make an issue that he was in front too soon and he idles. David Russell never commits him. He gets to the front, but he waits. And he waits for Shishkin to come and join him. And Shishkin joins him passing the last fence, 3-4 strides from the last hurdle, which allows David Russell to set Abacadabra up and ride him at the last hurdle. He pings it. Now, he's had a chance to fill his lungs from the home turn all the way to the last hurdle. Shishkin has been flat out, yet he still can't repel Shishkin. I think that was a race Abacadabra should have won. I think he got a much better run through the race and he had a much easier finish to the race, but he couldn't convert it.
I agree that he ended up probably in the right place because Asterion Forlonge just went too hard up front, didn't he? And it was probably a patient ride was what he needed. But I think that you can still suggest that Abacadabra's had an element of immaturity to him. At least he was able to hold his position in the race, which he'd need to do in a champion hurdle, which Shishkin wasn't able to do.
What do you mean by immaturity?
I mean that he was a novice.
Yeah, but sure, they were all novices. Yeah, where's he going to improve? I think he jumped really well, he travelled really well. Maybe he can physically improve for being a bit older, but I think he has to physically improve for being a bit older. And in what we've seen this year on his 2 runs, he improved by a neck from Down Royal to Punchestown.
This is him at Down Royal, and he comes into it cruising. The horse on the left, Aspire Tower, who we'll talk about in a few moments' time, ends up winning the race.
He does, and look, this was a bit of a stop-start race, and Aspire Tower, the 4-year-old, gets, I wouldn't say first run, but he kicks off the front, and maybe he was the fitter horse on the day and sees it out really well. But it was a good performance from Aspire Tower. Abacadabra's finishes ahead in front of Jason the Militant. When they reopposed last Sunday in the Morgiana Hurdle, again Abacadabra's finished in front, ahead and a neck in front of Jason the Militant. Now Jason the Militant turned up in Down Royal, having had a run on the flat. Here you are in Punchestown, St. Roy in the white cap, Cour Sublime in the maroon and white stripes. Abacadabra jumps, gets to the front. Now people have said he started to idle, but why did he idle this day? Why didn't he idle in Navan when he beat Latest Exhibition? Why didn't he idle in Leopardstown when he beat Helpin' Helpus? Why has he just decided to idle in the Morgiana Hurdle?
I don't know. Well, I put your own question back to you.
Neither do I. I don't think he's that idle. He looked in Cheltenham off the home turn to the last hurdle like he was idling, but when Shishkin came to him plenty early, he didn't all of a sudden pick up and sprint. He didn't idle in Navan. He didn't idle in Leopardstown. I'm not sure is he idling. He jumped out over a rail in a bumper. The horse in front is the superstar, Envoy Allen. And when Lisa O'Neill puts her whip back into her right hand in a few seconds, you'll see he goes in behind Envoy Allen and goes out over the inside running rail. Now, you could say in a bumper it's immaturity, but why would you do that? Why? That's the hardest thing to do, is do what he's just done. Jump up on top of the rail, and the easiest thing to do was stay galloping behind Envoy Allen. I don't know, but to me it most certainly raises a question mark about Abacadabra.
Generally, I remember Michael Dickinson saying, generally horses don't dissemble. Is it likely that something might be hurting him?
I don't know about hurting him, but he's definitely thinking about something. What it is, I don't know, and Gordon Elliott trains him, he'll figure that out. But you're talking about the road to Cheltenham. Will it stop him winning at Leopardstown at Christmas, a tactical race? Maybe not. Could he win again there in February? The Irish Champion Hurdle tends to be run a little bit more solidly maybe than the race at Christmas, so maybe he could get exposed there. But do I think he'll win the Champion Hurdle? I think he's vulnerable. I think he's a good bit to go to improve to beat Epatante.
And is that partly due to the stiff finish at Cheltenham?
Yeah, it is, but I think if you look at the opposition in the Champion Hurdle, if any of those were given the run through the Supreme that Abacadabra got, they would be winning it.
Okay. There was much discussion about Saint-Ouen, who ran behind Abacadabras in the Morgiana and almost pulled it out of the fire. Here, of course, was a very impressive winner of the County Hurdle, quite well backed last season. This is him in the County Hurdle.
Yeah. Now, you can argue this 2 ways as well. Would Abacadabra have won a county hurdle off the rating San Roy had? He most probably would. So you have to look for where the improvement's going to come. But he travels really strongly. It's Build Me Up Buttercup in the yellow colours, Moon Over Germany in the green just in front of him. Aramon is coming down the outside in the white sleeves. But it's how San Roy goes from the back of the last to the line that makes you think he possibly could be a champion hurdle horse. This is the new course in Cheltenham, of course. It is stiffer. The champion hurdle's on the old course, which is a little bit more speed dependent. But when Barry Geraghty picks him up, he puts his head down and away he goes and gallops to the line and through the line. So you're thinking he has the stamina. Now, what did we learn last Sunday in Punchestown? He raced too keenly. He didn't jump and he got caught in a bit of a pocket. But they're all things you can improve on. So you know he stays. So as the season progresses and fitness progresses, he could be ridden more aggressively. We know he can jump better than he jumped in the Morgiana because he jumped brilliantly in the County Hurdle. You know he stays. he too has to improve to beat Epatante, but I can see where that improvement can come from for Saint Roy, but I'm just not certain where the improvement comes from for Abacadabra.
OK, we can illustrate your point about Sam Roy because we've got a really interesting shot from the inside that shows exactly what Mark Walsh was facing in the Morgiana.
Yeah, this is up to the second last hurdle actually, and from being in third place, now he's last of 5. OK, position shouldn't really matter, it's about distance. He's no distance off the horses in front of him, but he never gets out and gets running. He's into the straight. Mark is thinking about coming out, then doesn't. It's great riding from the people in front of him. Rachel Blackmore stayed close to Paddy Kennedy in the red cap. Jack Kennedy stays close enough to Rachel Blackmore that the gap doesn't appear. And Keith Donoghue stays close enough to Jack Kennedy that Mark Walsh never gets a split. That's really good race riding. Everybody stays straight and tight. Abacadabra has a look. Saint Roy bunny hops the last and lands flat. And from there you think, oh, he could win. Will he win? No, it's too short a run in. It's downhill. But he only gets going close home. Jason the Militant is running. He makes up the ground on Jason the Militant. Gets between them. But I think in another 2 strides he's won. Now, I know people will say Abacadabra idled. Watch Saint Roy how he kind of hits between 2 hurdles and bunny hops up over it. He doesn't land anywhere near galloping. I think they're all things that can be improved on. And I'm just not certain where the improvement is for Abacadabra.
Well, it's not just you and I who are discussing this race. Obviously, everybody at home is as well. And we really do welcome your feedback and we love to see what you're talking about. And the Morgiana really has prompted quite a bit of comment here on social media. We'll start with Jack Layton, who says, all I'm hearing is Sam Roy this, Sam Roy that. He had more suitable ground for him than Abacadabras did. Rule 1 of a champion hurdle, you need to be able to jump. And Samoa struggled badly with that. John Dyke says...
Yeah, he did on Sunday, but...
Go on.
But so did Epatante in the Mayor's Novice Hurdle. She got it together. Jumping can be improved on, so yes, I agree with that man, but you can improve your jumping.
John Dykes has mentioned Epatante. After watching Abacadabras versus Sam Roy today, I'll be putting even more money on Epatante for the champion hurdle.
Wouldn't disagree with that. But the others have to get up to her standard and she sets it.
Absolutely. And I think we've got one more, haven't we? The final one. Shane Rooney says, I honestly don't know what to make of Sam Roy. He was very impressive in Cheltenham, but in terms of graded hurdles, he just looks a little out of his depth. I was in Clonmel for his Irish debut, so I probably have a lingering bad first impression, but for me, he looks a little bit of a hype job. I'm just not convinced he's as good as people make out him to be, and blaming the jockey isn't the answer. What do you reckon, Ruby?
Look, I agree with Shane Rooney. He is a little bit of a puzzle. Why did he get beaten at Clonmel? We couldn't tell you. He didn't look back since then. But I just think enough went on Sunday. I think the way he raced early in the race, he was so keen. People don't factor enough in for that. If he settles and jumps a bit better, which he can do with more racing and a bit more experience, look, he has to improve. But I think of the ones in the Morgiana, he's the most likely one to improve.
Yeah, I agree with almost all of that statement, apart from blaming the jockey is sometimes the answer. I'm just saying. Right, let's talk about some others in the champion hurdle, shall we? Epatante we've already discussed, and we've seen her. She is alive, Ruby. She was at the Newbury Gallops morning for the Ladbrokes Winter Carnival, and this is her on the near side, moving smoothly alongside a certain Altior.
Yes, she is, and there's probably no point in reading too much into this because from what I see of Altior, he always looks to be behind the bridle, yet he still keeps winning. But Epatante, she does look well. Obviously, Aidan Coleman takes over in the saddle this year from the retired Barry Geraghty, but he did win a Jerry Fielding honour, so that's no big issue. And look, she's the reigning champion. She'll go to the fighting fifth, and she's the one they all have to try and beat.
Is Aidan Coleman a good partner for Epatante? I know they've got history, of course.
It looked the most obvious one, having ridden her and won on her. He knows her. It would be the easiest progression, or whatnot. That's not the right word. The easiest transition.
Yes. There she is, just being pulled up. She heads to the Fighting Fifth at Newcastle on Saturday week, which of course is the race in which the then reigning champion Buveur picked up his season-ending injury. Nicky Henderson, trainer of both of them, has mentioned that he is on his way back, but he hasn't specified a target. What's your take on Buveur? Is he young enough and able enough to get back? And does Epatante set a reachable standard for him?
I wish him luck, and I think he will be a great addition to the champion hurdle. But my knowledge of any horse that gets injured is it's day by day, and when we see him, we will judge that further. But I wish him luck. He would be a super addition to the champion hurdle.
Yeah, 100% agree with all of those comments. Let's talk about Aspire Tower. We saw him in Dispatches there when we were talking about Abacadabras. Let's have a look at his Down Royal success, this time with the focus being on him. He's on the left there with the orange colours.
Yeah, he jumped in and out in the triumph for Lydia, and Henry Brom had remarked to me after that he never thought he had him right from Christmas last year. He was very good on this occasion, but I got blown away by Cours Sublime in this very race last year as a 4-year-old. It is a difficult season, 4 into 5. That's what Aspire Tower will have to do. It's what Goshen will have to do. It's just a difficult time, and he was good that day, but I don't know, you'll see him in the triumph here. He bunny hops a couple of hurdles, runs a bit keenly. He's getting blown out of the way by Goshen. But the more I watch this race, and I probably haven't watched it too often because it's such a disappointing race to watch, but Burning Victory in the yellow and brown, when you see where she comes from and how she jumped, it's remarkable she got involved at all.
She surely got involved because the front three there, All Mankind, Aspire Tower and Goshen, have just gone far too hard. They had these best horses in the race, had it between them.
They did have it between them, but you say they've gone too hard, yet the one in white and red was still going to bolt in, which is Goshen. So they went too hard for Aspire Tower and All Mankind, but they certainly didn't go too hard for Goshen.
Absolutely.
Who was going to win regardless. So looking for Burning Victory is now... Look, Henry's convinced Aspire Tower wasn't right, but history does tell us a 4-year-old wins the champion hurdle sort of every 10 years, 5-year-old I mean, and we had one 2 years ago. So, I don't know, best watched I think.
Yeah, he certainly disappointed me here in the Triumph Hurdle. Let's have a quick look at his Leopardstown run as well, because as you rightly say, Henry de Broghead has said that he didn't think he was right even then, and we can... That's a terrible shot of Goshen. Every time I see it, it breaks.
Did you have to watch? We had to show that, did we?
We've got another one coming up actually, so I'm just hoping that Jamie Moore has made a very long cup of tea. We're going to move on to Leopardstown now and have a look at Aspire Tower because Henry felt he was just running flat here. He certainly wasn't hurdling as he can do. He led, and at the time I thought he didn't particularly like that, but maybe for some reason he just wasn't right after a busy time on the flat for Steve Gollings previously.
Possibly, and putting in a huge performance on the clock at Leopardstown at Christmas. But this form, Lydia, yeah, look, I thought on this day he was going to win, but beating Cerberus and A Wave by the Sea, that's not going to do. He ends up on the ground, and if he was going to win, he was going to be very workmanlike. Falls at the last, spots a good strike, claps the top bar, turns over. But that's a long way from champion hurdle form. There's no doubt about that. So Henry, as I said already, maintains he didn't have him right last year, but I just don't know about 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds into the champion hurdle.
Well, I take your point about the difficult second album. We're now going to focus again on Goshen, and I'm afraid that you have to watch it. But Jamie Moore, if you happen to be watching at home, you don't have to watch this. Ruby, he's being paid to do it. So this is the closing stages of the Triumph Hurdle, when, as you say, he was going to absolutely storm home, despite having been partly responsible for a really feverish pace.
He was, but his ears approaching the hurdle tell you he had loads left. The fact that he was able to find the leg and stand up tells you how much energy the horse had left, and it was going to be a hell of a good performance. This is him running on the flat at Goodwood, and he finishes third in the end. Do jumps obviously bring about something that the flat doesn't, Lydia? You'd be a much better judge of flat form than me, but you'd be hoping a champion hurdle horse would be winning this race on the flat.
Yeah, I mean, in mitigation, this is the most competitive and best race he'd have encountered in his life on the flat. It's probably over an inadequate trip as well, 1.5 miles, and he had just had a long season over jumps, hadn't he? This would not have been the priority. If Gary Moore had been prioritising him improving on the flat, we wouldn't have seen him all the way through the season over jumps, would we?
No, we wouldn't, and the more you watch that race on the flat, he wasn't knocked about when his chance was gone, and it's a stepping stone to go forward. But like when you watch his Triumph Hurdle, it was going to be one of the most breathtaking Triumph Hurdle performances we've seen in a long time.
Absolutely. OK, so let's have a look at this division through the prism of the anti-post betting for the Unibet Champion Hurdle. Of course, Epatante fighting fifth, Christmas Hurdle again, and then Champion Hurdle is the plan. Samoa is a point shorter than Abacadabras. Goshen is there at 8-1, and we understand, and he isn't going to be running at Ascot at the weekend, and we'll be able to pore over the implications of that, I'm sure, later on in the season. And then we're up to double-figure prices. What do you think?
Will I take 7-2 about Epatante now is the question, and I probably would, because she's going to win the fight in fifth, she'll win the Christmas Hurdle, so what price is she going to be on the day? You're backing her to get there, really, because I think she will be shorter in March.
OK. Right, let's move on, and we're going to move on to the social media section, and we're going to be littering your comments and thoughts throughout the show. We've had some already on the subject of Abacadabras and Samoa. Let's have a look at what else you've been discussing in terms of the recent action, shall we? Now, this feels like we're intruding, Ruby, into a sort of private argument had between, two people who know each other very well, Quantilizer and Vaughan Lewis. Go on at some length. This is a mere extract from about 4 pages worth on the subject of Put the Kettle On and the evaluation of the Shloer Chase. Quantilizer says, definitely never travelling and pulled up, rises the size of a bull. Duke de Genevieve ran too free, too far out. She toughed it out well. Not sure what she's beaten there. In paddock, she was the only one who looked fit. Vaughan says she's 3 from 3 at Cheltenham, including an Arkle and a Shloer. She's beaten Rouge Vif, who bolted up in a handicap of 156 and is now 167. And Al Dancer, who has beaten 4 lengths in a Paddy Power Gold Cup of 154. I guess you won't be impressed until she actually wins the Queen Mother Champion Chase. In all seriousness, this is a fantastic conversation in which they go to explore every single angle. What's your take?
I have learned to reserve my judgment and hold my tongue when it comes to Put the Kettle On. I didn't fancy her in Cheltenham last November, nor did I fancy her in the Arkle, but she proved me wrong on both occasions. What did I learn on Sunday? I think she's one for the Mayor's Chase. She looked to me like she wants a little further than 2 miles.
Wash your mouth out, Ruby. Wash your mouth out. We're going to be discussing many things about... I mean, the Mayor's Chase, fantastic. I mean, great incentivisation for keeping mares in training and having them jumping, absolutely. But there are some downsides with that. We've lost the Novices chase, the limited chase, and it does provide an opportunity to further dilution, as you've just suggested.
I think you can make another race very competitive, and I think she wants 2.5 miles, so that's looking at her there. I mean, she's unbeaten at 2 miles, but she looked to get outpaced by Duke de Genevieve there, and look, maybe the Champion Chase is wide open, and that is where Henry the Bromhead will go, but as I've said in the beginning of this statement, Lydia, I have read Put the Kettle On completely wrong for her whole career, so I'm going to reserve judgment, but watching her, she looks like she wants further.
Well, we're going to be focusing on the 2-miler chase division, so you could have got an opportunity to get things more wrong about her later on in the show. In the meantime, we're going to talk about the Big Breakaway. A couple of people have got views on his success at Cheltenham. Thomas Esmond thinks he showed a bit of a quirk going out on the second circuit, but otherwise was super impressive. And then Neil Brown says, fantastic performance, but how good is Envoy Alain, who beat it out of sight? It must be a machine. We use he and her in this parish, Neil, if you can bear that in mind in future. Ruby.
I think Envoy Allen is a machine, an absolute machine, and I was impressed with the Big Breakaway at Cheltenham at the weekend. If you were to crab him, it's the height he goes, and when you jump that high, you are expending energy. And usually it slows horses down, but he seemed to be able to go that high and get through the air. I thought he was much better the faster they were going down to the third last. He was spectacular, and it was a really taken performance.
Excellent. We're going to be able to disagree at length about this later in the show. I knew it would happen, and for it to come up so soon is just a bonus to me. A bonus to both Ruby and I would be you getting more involved in this show during the course of the series. It's so important to us that we have your point of view and that we can discuss it. And if you would like to put a question directly to me, or more probably Ruby, let's be honest, then you can do so. You can record it via any of our social media channels with the hashtag Road to Cheltenham. One of us will pick it up, and we will be answering at least one of your questions on this show every week. Right. Right, back to Put the Kettle On, and some time devoted to Ruby getting something extensively wrong. Let's have a look, first of all, at her win in the Arkle that Ruby didn't expect. I particularly love this jump 2 out. This is where she breaks Fakadidari's heart, surely, Ruby, because she's so neat and quick away from it.
She was, but I thought it was Aidan Coleman's manoeuvre at the back of the third last where he got across in front of Mark Walsh that was equally as impressive. Winged the second last and then ultimately outstays Facker. You think coming here he's coming to beat her, but when they get to the line she wins going away. So maybe that backs up my theory. She wants a little further. He of course was only a 5-year-old there on that occasion, and as horses get older they do tend to want further as well. So look, he's entered at the weekend, but I think he may want a little bit further. He is here winning at the Shloer Chase. Duke de Genève, does he fold or does she outstay him? I'm not certain. He's the 2019 Arkle winner, she's the 2020 Arkle winner, but she definitely gets the trip better than he does.
He folds, doesn't he? He's there looking to go out to the stables halfway up the run, and he's gone off far too hard despite a first-time hood, and he's just paddling, isn't he, in the closing stages?
He is a bit, but it takes her long enough time to get by him, and when she does, she beats him well over a length. So, yeah, he is. Maybe Paul Nicholls will think he can improve Duke de Genève on that, and if he thinks that, obviously the Tingle Creek will be where he goes. So it'll be interesting to see what he's like around Sandown.
Last season, of course, after she won the Novice Chase at the November meeting at Cheltenham, Put the Kettle On was put away for the winter because she's got so much extensive experience over the summer. Henry de Bromhead has hinted that that might not be the case this time around.
No, because she'd raced all through last summer, so I think winning at Cheltenham in November was almost the end of a campaign, whereas this year she's only had the one run since March, so Henry will campaign her differently. Whether she'll go to Tingle Creek, I don't know. In Ireland, I think the next race for her, there could be a race in Cork, but maybe Leopardstown at Christmas.
OK. Right, let's talk about Altior, shall we? We spent so much of last season talking about Altior. It's going to be the same, obviously, this time around. The good thing is that he is out and about. We've seen this shot before, but this time we're focusing on the horse on the right, who is Altior, galloping alongside Epatante, stable companion.
Again, Lydia, other than knowing that Altior is alive and well,
which is important, Ruby, which is important.
Increasing his preparation. Yeah, but that's what we learned. He's alive and well, and when he goes to the track, we'll learn some more. That's about as much as we can say about that.
Tingle Creek seems to be the plan.
It does, and he has form in Sandown, so that shouldn't be any issue for him. And it's what the opposition will be. It'll obviously, or it could be Duke de Genève, the horse of Paul's that won the Halden Gold Cup, whose name has escaped me.
Grenadine.
But Grenadine. But what else is going to be in opposition?
I did know the answer to this. Oh, Politolog is possible as well. Politolog is entered.
Yeah, was he overlooked for his Champion Chase win, or was it fluke? We all thought. Only time will tell. He's definitely a best horse fresh. He is the Champion Chase winner. Personally, I think he'll suit Altior in the Tingle Creek, because having won a Champion Chase by making all the running, one would imagine they would be the tactics used in the Tingle Creek, and that will help and suit Altior. But
well,
look,
on the morning of the race,
didn't turn up.
Yeah, on the morning of the race, it all looked like it was Defi Desoy's race to grab, wasn't it? The horse there about to jump 2 out in 4th, but he was just never at the races at all.
No, Barry Geraghty's body language told you a long way from home he wasn't happy. He obviously ran very poorly in the Shloer Chase last Sunday as well, so big, high, empty jump at the last fence there. So beating Dynamite Dollars and God's Own is basically the strength of this form. Is that good enough to win the Tingle Creek and regain his Champion Chase crown? I don't think so.
It was a very dominant performance though. I mean, he absolutely burned them from 3 out.
He did, but if you can manage to go along in Cheltenham for the first mile or even 9 furlongs without having to burn horses off, and you have Politolog's ability, you can set sail at the top of the hill and say, catch me if you can, and you can prove it can be hard to get by you.
So who sets the standard in this division for your money? Is it that recent form of Politologs? Is it Defi Desoy on song last season? Is it still Altior's now rather dusty form? Or is it Chacun Pour Soi?
It's probably Chacun Pour Soi's run in Leopardstown when he beat Min. Min obviously then went and won the Ryanair. that's probably the strongest bit of form that's not more than 14 months old. So maybe it's him. It probably is him. But look, he has proved to be, I suppose, fragile. He got a stone bruise in Cheltenham, missed the champion chase. He's only had 2 runs as a novice chaser, 2 runs in his first open season. That's 4 runs for Willie Mullins is all he's had. 5 runs, sorry, is all he's had. So yeah, he sets the standard, but I'm sure a lot of people would like to see a little bit more of him.
Yeah, I agree with both the points you made there, that he sets the standard. I think that race was phenomenal. And I think Min has only gone to underline that in the Ryanair by winning the Ryanair at the Cheltenham Festival. At the time, people were using Min somehow to crab that performance. I think that was a superb performance. But like you, I don't think Shakhan Baswar is anything like an anti-post proposition just because of the track record he has for not getting to the track often enough. Let's have a look at the betting for the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase and just remind ourselves as well that we might get some extra evidence at the weekend from Naas because 3 big uns are taking each other on in Fakudidari's Notebook and Cashback at Naas or in the Poplar Square Chase on Saturday. Let's move on to the novice chasers because we've seen a number of high-profile horses either making their debut or getting some further practice in, and you've picked out some who've made the grade and some who, in your view, frankly haven't. Let's start with those that have made the grade, and we start with the obvious one, the fantastic winner of the Ballymore last season, the Novices Hurdle, Envoy Alain.
Yeah, look, it was no racing down Royal Lydia, and he was one to something prohibitive, 16 or 14 or whatever he was, but there was so much to like about what he did and he did it all himself. Jack Kennedy was very confident on him. He shortened when he had to shorten. You even see the middle rail of that fence being moved. It never fazed him. Popped that ditch. He just was a pleasure to watch him, how he went about it. We know he has a huge engine. He is unbeaten, and we now know he has an attitude and appetite for jumping fences, and he's very sure of what he does. I think it was spectacular. If I had a novice chaser that I owned myself, I would be either trying to turn it into a 3-miler or a 2-miler because I would be avoiding him wherever he goes.
And it sounds like you think he's going to go to the Marsh.
I do. That's the road he went last year. I think it's the road he'll go again this year. Watch him at the last fence. The faster he goes, he's like watching a flat horse quickening up all the way down. Jack Kennedy's hands never move, shortens up. Phew.
I agree. I agree, it was fabulous. His footwork was fantastic, but he was more than 2 stones superior to the rest of this field. You know, he was never put under pressure by horses of better standard at his fences, so his technique better had be good in those circumstances.
Which horse is going to put him under pressure?
Well, you know, even Arkle and Corto Star were put under pressure sometimes, weren't they?
They were eventually. They had off days and didn't always win, but when they were on song, there wasn't too many that could touch them.
Sorry, I should mention Flying Bolt as well if your dad's around.
Yes, and what did he tell me the other day? One of the Irish handicappers backed up his theory with some rather interesting figures, Lydia.
Oh, really?
Yes, through Height of Fashion, I think. I think Arkle may have beaten Height of Fashion, giving her £30 by half a length. I think Flying Bolt beat her by 3 lengths, giving her £40.
That sounds a bit too literalist for my liking. Anyway, we digress. I like a digression. We digress. The Big Breakaway. You tell me why this is any good.
Why it's any good? I just like the way he jumps. Well, if I was crabbing him, I'd say he's a little bit high, but the faster he goes, the better he jumps. What's he beaten? I couldn't tell you how good, bad or indifferent they are, but I think for a chasing debut, I'd really like it. I'd like his mentality. Watch when they set off, they're going all gallop. It's his first run of the season. He doesn't stiffen the reins or get overly enthusiastic. I think he jumps this second fence really, really well with Robert Power. Good jump through the air. Look at the distance he puts between himself and the 2 horses behind him. It's his speed on landing that's probably as impressive as anything else. When he lands, the gap appears to the horses behind. Gets in close to the ditch here, very sure of what he's doing, up and over. But it was quickening to 3 out that really impressed me. Now, this is the one part I didn't like. He's not running Cheltenham overly often, yet he seems to know where the stable yard is directly behind him as he slows down away from the stands. That you could crab, but I do remember a certain Denman doing the very same thing. So that quirk could be in him, but he quickens up to the jump and jumps it really well. You know, from having a look going to the fence, he's landed almost in front. Here, when they're going faster, this is a magnificent jump.
They're going in slow motion, aren't they? The horse currently in second, Soldier of Love. It's shorter to list the fences at which he doesn't jump markedly right or make a mistake on. And the Butcher Said and Wolf of Winderstrom, who are both previous winners, well, they made a fair few mistakes as well. It just looked very steady to me. So I almost fell off my chair when Robbie Power suggested dropping down to 2.5 miles.
I could see why he said it, because of the way he jumped 3 out. He even as good as he was jumping, when they went faster, he jumped better. Same as Envoy Allen in Down Royal. When they actually up the tempo, they jump better. A lot of horses don't. A lot of horses need to go slow to jump. But those two looked to me like two horses when the speed was upped, that jumped better.
Let's move on to Pencil Full of Lead, which is a great name, I think. He was in winning action as well in the Florida Pearl.
He was, and was only second favourite here. Watch the first fence. Latest Exhibition is directly behind him. Pencil Full of Lead jams on, and Latest Exhibition jumps by him. But the race then seemed to reverse on the first fence. And from here on is the body language. Brian Cooper's, watch his arms and the grey sleeves as this race progresses. His body language never exudes the confidence that Rachel Blackmore's does beside him with the black sleeves. Down the back straight, Brian is looking for jumps. Rachel Blackmore didn't have to move to get that jump. Same here, Rachel gets in close, Brian pings it, but Rachel never moves on landing. She just was obviously getting the feeling from this horse that she was going so easy all the way, whereas Brian was having to niggle and ride for jumps. Now, did Latest Exhibition underperform? Does he want heavy ground? I don't know, because if he was right, Brian Cooper would have put Rachel Blackmore in a pocket there behind Sean Flanagan in the Cerise colours. He can't even manage to do that with 3 furlongs to run. Pencil Full of Lead was galloping over Latest Exhibition. He was a horse that had a big reputation as a bumper horse, possibly didn't fulfil it as a hurdler, but he surely looks like he's going to do it as a chaser. And to me, it was the body language of the two riders all through the race that told you Rachel Blackmore was the one that was going much easier. And I think Latest Exhibition is a very good horse myself.
Well, we'll come back to Latest Exhibition in a few moments' time, because I've got a case to put in his defence later on. But I did like Pencil Full of Lead, and it was partly him as well on that home turn, the fact that he was able to get himself out of what was potentially a pocket.
He was, but it was the jockey's body language from a long way out told you how one was going way easier than the other.
OK. Let's have a look at the Gumball El Dorado Allen matchup that ended in disaster for Gumball, sadly, at Cheltenham.
There's Gumball pinging the fence past the stand. You see him at the ditch here. Richard Johnson spots one, and up he comes. So, and the third last lies down his neck, go on Gumball and wings it. I was really taken by Gumball. I think Richard Johnson was right. We saw him ask Gumball 3 times now, so why wouldn't he off the bend look for that jump again? The horse has already proven he can do it, and that's the one that Richard Johnson goes for. And I think this will be a brilliant rematch in the Henry VIII if both go there. How would you call this, Lydia? Were you in the Gumball or El Dorado Allen camp at this stage? I had been really impressed with the horse in front, even though I know the one behind stays. Richard Johnson goes for the stride that he's already gotten 3 times, and Gumball changes his mind. So, I don't know. I think that'll be a really good rematch.
I'm completely torn, because look at that jump at the last. That is not the jump of a tired horse. I really liked El Dorado Allen's jump 3 out, because I thought that kept him in the game. Like you, I thought Gumball was in a real rhythm, and I think in his mind he jumped the second last. I think he was as surprised as everybody else to find himself on the floor. That rematch is going to be fantastic. Where would you expect it to be? The Henry VIII?
It looks the obvious place. That's where El Dorado Allen will have to go, and it's whether Philip Hobbs goes there or not is the interesting part. But I can't wait for it. I think they're 2 really nice novices, and it was really taken with Gumball till he fell.
And so you think he'd have held on had he stood up?
I watched it live and didn't, but when I went back to look at it for this show, I was thinking, oh, he may have underestimated the one in front.
Mm. They're both interesting, aren't they? I can't be dogmatic coming down on the side of one or the other. Right, OK, those are the ones that impressed you. Let's move on to the ones that haven't so much. And this should have been a really good matchup at Exeter earlier in the week between 2 decent novice hurdlers, Fiddler on the Roof and Sporting John. This is a mistake from Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah, and I thought he looked lethargic in first last behind if the cap fits on his first start, and you'd kind of expect horses to be energetic on their first run. Now maybe the other side of that coin is Lydia. I've underestimated Fergal O'Brien's horse on the outside, Silver Hallmark. Like, his form ties in with Mac Fabulous in bumpers and hurdle races, but I thought he really made Fiddler on the Roof dig deep, and Sporting John, he probably ran too poor to be true. He shouldn't be this far behind him. Now, Fiddler on the Roof digs really deeply, but you're just expecting a horse that won at Talworth, that people were speaking so highly of, to win a novice chase a little easier than that.
Okay. I've added some clips of latest exhibition. I just want to make the suggestion to you that maybe he just isn't that happy going right-handed. He adjusts out to his left quite a bit, and I went and looked back through his form. I know he'd won at Punchestown before, but he does the same thing. You can see him doing the same thing at Galway when he wins on his seasonal debut and breaks his duck over hurdles, and he's helped on that occasion by almost every hurdle actually being doled off, so he doesn't have to jump very many. And I just wonder whether this is really his bag when he's up against a horse of the standard of Pencil Full of Lead.
Possibly Lydia, and it's a very good sight. I hadn't noticed it. You see him jumping into Longhouse Poet there in the red cap, but I hadn't noticed it before till you have showed me those clips right now, and I would be thinking or hoping I would have noticed a more marked drift to his left. That looked like the last stride, finding a bit of room when he's in close, but maybe it is. Time will tell. Yep,
it's just a working hypothesis at the moment. We can prove it to be right or wrong during the course of the season. And the last horse that you've put up in the negative category is an interesting one. This is a horse that was beaten at Cheltenham but put up a huge performance in doing it and made a winning debut, a certain Asterion Forlonge.
Yeah, look, he was really good again here, Lydia. He was good. He won his beginner's chase first time up. To me, with company, his jumping was pretty straight. He's not jumping markedly to his right like he did in Cheltenham. Once there's a horse outside him, to me, he's good and straight. But the further this race develops, and when he gets alone in front, he does start to jump to his right. Now, I know he's going right-handed, so it's hard to tell, but from what we can see, he doesn't look to be going right. He has company. He has another horse beside him. Got close to the third fence and the middle fence in the back straight, good at the last ditch, and from that angle he looks good and straight. But after this fence, when he gets on his own in front, launches off to his right, second last again, he gets off to his right, and it gets more marked as the faster he's going. Jumps in there, and Knuckles does well to find his feet, and he's good and right at the last. Now, the other side of the coin is, as you've said, Lydia, the words road and two are as important as the word Cheltenham. So he can go to Limerick at Christmas for the novice Grade 1 novice chase there, which is right-handed. He can then go back to Punchestown in February for a novice chase, winners the two that's right-handed, and he could stay in Ireland and go to Fairyhouse for the Power Gold Cup and back to the Punchestown Festival and run right-handed all season if you so wish. Now, I have a funny feeling, knowing Willie Mullins, he will most certainly chance him left-handed somewhere along the way. But if you never wanted it, he could go right-handed for as long as you want.
Absolutely, and I have to say I think I would be inclined to do that with him. I think you've got enough of a body of evidence with Asterion Forlonge. Every time he's ever encountered an obstacle at some point in the race, he has demonstrated a habit of going out to his right. And as you've just mapped out, there is a very good programme for him where he can speak his excellent ability. I mean, I was really impressed that he managed to stick around in the Supreme as long as that, going so fast and jumping so right.
I just wonder, would he go as right if he was behind horses rather than in front?
Interesting. And Willie has also said that the trip of 2 mile 3.5 that he made his chase debut over is the shortest trip he'll be racing over this season, and he just wonders whether having a bit more time in a longer distance race, that might help too. What do you think?
Definitely. When you up speed with horses, power, decision making, everything has to be quicker. So when you're going slower, you have more time to try and keep them straight anyway.
Okay. Well, Ruby, thank you very much for your thoughts during this programme. We've extended it a little bit, which I think is only fair the first time around, and particularly with you being so far away. Have you got any reflections?
I think when I watch this tonight, I will tell myself I have rabbited on for far too long and will make it more concise the next time.
Well, on that note, we'll say goodbye.